A very great afternoon to have you today, and like we said, well, last Thursday, every Thursday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., we shall always have a conversation about taxes, and this is entirely powered by URA, the Uganda Revenue Authority. I want to thank those that reached out last week. I saw a couple of friends from Namibia, Angola, and South Korea when it got to something to do with taxation, and I want to thank those that take this conversation very tight. Now, today, we're going to talk about the tax obligations for the SMEs. And to have this conversation and more, in studio with me, I have Mr. Jim Kagolo, Supervisor Domestic Taxes from the Uganda Revenue Authority. Be a part of this conversation on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, as well as YouTube. That is NTV Uganda. I'm Andrew Chamagero, and the conversation starts. Good to have you, Jim.
Good to have you, Andrew.
Now, when we talk about domestic taxes, especially the SMEs, one would like to know what SMEs are we looking at practically in this particular conversation?
Thank you, Andrew. The SMEs we are looking at, taxpayers who are in business and their turnover does not exceed 150 million in a given year. Okay. So we are categorizing them by the turnover, the gross turnover they make from their businesses, provided does not exceed 150 million, then they are classified as small taxpayers.
Okay. Now, those are the ones we're talking about today. A great conversation. The ones who've actually classified, they went through a very bumpy road in the COVID-19. A couple of them closed up. Others are still resilient in the business, but it's not a usual way as it goes. We are wondering, have the obligations of URA changed in one way or the other?
The obligations haven't changed. They haven't changed.
Okay. Let's start with the simplest thing. What kind of taxes are they meant to pay? And if we could just classify them in bits.
Okay, when a person is in a business, for starters, there would be income tax. We would call it the presumptive tax for the SMEs that we are looking at today. Which will be corporation tax for the companies. Then we also have other tax types. If a person is registered, perhaps for VAT, there will be VAT. If a person employs some people, he will have to be registered for pay-as-you-earn and will be required to pay pay-as-you-earn.
Okay, then let's talk about the requirements. One needs to register for all that. Now that you've said all that, and my small company with a turnover of 150 million falls within that, what requirements do I need or prerequisites I need to register for taxation? Okay,
thank you, Andrew. You can do business as an individual or as a company.
Let's start with the individuals.
With the individuals.
Yes, because Uganda deals a lot with sole proprietorship.
Yeah, sole proprietorship.
Yes.
So for individuals, the requirements are not many. Of late, you have an instant TIN. All you need is to go to the web portal, that is ura.go.ug. You apply, punch in your NIN, you'll get the TIN instantly as an individual. So we have an instant TIN, but once you get that instant TIN, you have to go to the URA office for it to be validated. But alternatively, you can use the old form, the Excel template we have on the portal. You fill in on those details, and all you need is either your national ID or any other two IDs. You present them with that form, then you will get a TIN. Alternatively, rather, you also need to have an email address, because most of the times email communication is on email.
It's easier.
So we need an email address, your personal. Most times people put the email for the agents, and all the communication go to the agents. We prefer that you indicate your personal email address such that you're in a position to get all the communications from URA. We also need your telephone number in case we need to ask you about something. We should be in a position to contact you on phone. So the email address, the IDs, and the telephone number. Those are basically what we require from an individual to register for taxes.
That sounds really good. But Jim, let's talk about people who are sole proprietors. They are in places around this country where possibly the digital strategy has not covered them in one way or the other. You and I know how this country is. and maybe the closest URA office is far from them. Do we have any USSD code they can actually use to possibly get into the teen world as well?
Currently, we don't have any of sorts, but we have other activities. Like we have the Tujenge bus. It is moving all over Uganda, reaching all taxpayers wherever they are, to offer services, including teen registration. So in case they have issues with the network, and the URA office is far from them, the URA bus is there. It will reach everywhere.
That makes a lot of sense. That was the individual. Now let's go to the company. The requirements I need to actually be to start off to register for the teen.
The teen for a company, first and foremost, you'll have, as a company, you have registered with URSB. So we shall need a certificate of registration, all incorporation.
From URSB? From
URSB. Then we shall need the company Form 20, the one which indicates the directors. For starters, any company must have at least one director. So that company Form 20 should indicate the details of the director, and the director should also have a teen. Then still there must be an email address, there must be a telephone number, and probably an active bank account, being a company. So those are the requirements. For the company, we do not have an instant teen of late. So you go to the website, you go to apply for taxes, you download the form for non-individual, you fill in all the fields, you validate and upload. You print the form you've submitted, you attach all these details I've mentioned. The certificate of registration, all incorporation, the company form 20, the ID of the director.
That is the national ID?
Yes, the national ID.
Okay.
Then you submit to the nearest URA office. In case it is, the office is far, you can send those forms by email.
Oh, you scan or take pictures and actually send. Oh, that is really good. My dear Ugandan watching this, we have 7.2 million Ugandans who pay taxes, actually who are in earning ranges, and actually, you know, in offices they should be paying, but we have only 2.5 who are compliant, who are paying. We need to widen our tax base, and as a country, this is something very pertinent. For starters, one would equally need to understand, Jim, why is teen registration very crucial, and why should someone protect their teen number? Is it so strong that I should protect it with all my life the way I protect my NIN number, or it is something I can do away with?
Okay, thank you, Andrew. The teen, what we call the tax identification number, it is very paramount, because as an individual or a company, you get it once in lifetime. So all the transactions relating to taxes, you have to make them using the teen, including paying taxes, including importing. In case you are to do any importation, you have to be having a teen. In case you do want to do a land transaction, you must have a teen. In case you want to buy a car, okay, the car must be attached to your teen. Now that we have the white logbooks and the logbooks are digital, they are attached to your teen. So you have to protect, to guard your teen jealously, in that if any other person gets onto hold of your password for the teen, he can do any transaction. He can import goods using your tin, and URA in turn will look for you because you are the owner of that tin. And
we've actually seen, friends, Jim, where you're making a land transaction or you're buying a car and you don't have a tin, but you know you have the money. And someone will call and say, Andrew, can I use your tin? I just want to bring this in. Many of us are so gullible that we just say, it's just a tin at the end of the day. Are there strong ramifications in case I don't protect my tin? That could be, you know, jail leading, if so, to look at the magnitude of how sensitive this is.
Yes, we have penalties for misuse of a tin.
One, we need to know the penalties.
Of course, this is a very good conversation. They include paying a penalty or imprisonment.
My tin being used for anything that's not mine?
Exactly.
Okay.
Assuming someone uses your tin and imports something that is not allowed.
That's illegal.
That is illegal. So the first suspect will be the owner of the tin. Someone can register or transfer the car into your names using your tin. Okay, and the transaction is approved.
Yes.
He uses it in theft. The first suspect will be
the owner of the tin.
The owner of the tin. So you have to guard your tin jealously, that nothing should happen without your knowledge.
URA businesses are required to declare, you know, how much they've earned and keep reports and all that, especially those ones in the SMEs and the ones you're actually talking about. How does URA get to these figures for starters?
For starters?
Yes. Because the times are just there and you're waiting and an email pops. Let me tell you, Mr. Kagolo, every time these emails from URA come through, I'm like, okay, let me read my estimations this month. And they keep going up. Even at times when I try to call on the other side, you realize that someone is bent to just make sure that you pay some money. We need to understand, we as people who would like to be compliant, how does URA, you know, get to these figures for starters? Because that's where the big elephant in the house is. If we go past that, many people will actually be compliant. Okay.
For starters, we run a self-assessment regime. What do we mean by a self-assessment regime? It is the taxpayer, okay, to declare at the end of a given period. If it is a monthly tax types, that is for VAT, income tax, withholding tax, pay as you earn. You have to make a declaration to URA within 15 days after the end of the month. So you have to declare to URA. If it is income tax, you have a full year and you have 6 months after the end of the financial year, all the year you're using, to declare to URA. Now, even when you've not transacted in any given financial year, the obligation to file a return remains. Remember, we are in a self-assessment regime. So if you haven't transacted, the obligation to file a return remains. File a nil return. A nil return will indicate that Andrew did not do any transaction within this year. But remember also the other obligation is you have to make timely and accurate returns. So you have to make sure that whatever you're declaring in that return is correct. Do not file a nil return because you don't want to pay tax. File a nil return if it is a nil return.
So it's okay to file nil, but file.
But file, because the obligation will always remain. The moment you're registered for tax, you have an obligation to file a return with URA. It is okay to file without figures if you've not transacted, but that is a return. Now, the moment you fail to file a return, you failed on your duty of self-assessing yourself. Okay? Now you've given leeway to a taxman to assess you.
Depending
the assessment can be an estimate. Maybe it's comparing you with your competitor. Okay? That if, Andrew, you have a saloon, and your neighbor also has a saloon, okay? Probably you have about the same clients, okay? And he has declared 100 million. Probably that can give me a very good range.
Of 80, around
80, or even 120. Maybe your saloon looks better and depending, you will get more clients. So that gives the taxman a leeway to estimate. Okay, but the estimation should have a basis. Alternatively, like I said, many taxpayers do not want to keep records. Okay? But you know we are in a digital era. Okay? So you may fail to keep records, but probably where you're buying from, that person is keeping records, and URA has access to that information. Okay? So they can base on that information to assess you. Because
my suppliers have a database.
A database. And they've already declared that they've supplied to you.
And their LPO shows that they have supplied and
definitely. Oh dear. So we can use that same information to assess. In case you fail. But even when you've failed, we have to confirm that the return you filed is accurate.
Now, that's where I'm coming. Jim, I am in a business of, you know, the Juwakali, Muntu Wansi. I have my simple hardware, rather, let me say hardware, or a wholesale business. And I'm doing all these back and forth, and I deal in cash. Even my suppliers, when they come, I say, give me the receipt, but the receipt they give me is the NASA receipt. It's not the one that is actually automated. Yeah. So that money becomes a little bit hard to track via URA, correct? So how do you quantify those?
In cases where they haven't filed, or in cases where they filed, but we need to confirm whether it is accurate. Now,
the accuracy here is coming in. My supplier is not tax compliant. Even me, I'm not tax compliant. We're dealing in cash. Give me the goods and then we move. And we go through these kind of conversations. And one is like, maybe I need to start to be compliant. So what becomes of those cash transactions in one or the other? I think that's why URA is missing, because this is a transaction going on which cannot be tracked. Now, this case notification of transaction gone without tracking from the taxman, how does that affect the computation at the end of the month? Okay, and one thing I'm sure of, there is no businessman who will not keep at least the smallest record. Because at the end of the day, he or she wants to know how much profit he has made. True. So no matter how he keeps the records, probably he has a counter book and he records the sales. Okay? Yes. All he records the purchases. Okay? He will have that record. Many times we go to audit or we go to the field, we do visits to those taxpayers, and we know they have those books. So where the transactions are very hard to trace in the digital database, okay? We can do a visit, engage the taxpayer, know how he's operating, and we get those records. So we use those records to do the assessment. In that, at the end of the day, we want the assessment to be a bit logical and not a mere estimate for the sake of assessing tax. So whoever gives a URA the access to these books of accounts and all, he's assessed adequately to make sure that he's, you know, fairly taxed, correct? Definitely, yes. And those who don't? We have, like I talked about, the presumptive regime, okay? Because we know the people who are below 150 million, we classify them as small and micro taxpayers. Now, the law was amended, okay, to enable our colleagues who are in business, but their turnover is below 150 million. We have different rates, okay? For them, they are taxed basing on turnover, okay? We do not go into the nitty-gritties of expenses and what. We just get the turnover, then impose the tax. Their rates are a bit different from the others, which is 30%. So where you have, it was categorized into two. Where you have records, probably you're going to pay a lower tax compared to your counterpart who does not have records. And they are also classified under certain bands. From 0 to 10 million, you do not have to pay tax. So if your gross turnover in a year is less than 10 million, whether you have records or you do not have records, you do not have to pay any single tax. But here file nil. Yes, but file nil, because we are all talking on the presumptive, okay? So you file nil. If it is between 10 million and 30 million, when you have records, you're going to pay 80,000. Imagine 80,000 in a whole year. Per annum. And that is your income tax. If your turnover, the gross turnover, not the profit, the gross turnover between 10 to 30, you have records, you pay 80,000. Wow. Without records, okay, you're paying 0.4% in excess of the 10 million. Assuming if your turnover is 20 million, you're going to get the 20 million minus the 10, so you're remaining with the 10. So your tax will be 0.4% times the 10 million. Whatever we get is the tax that you're going to pay.
But you realize that a person without records will pay a little more compared to the one who has records.
Because they want him to be compliant.
Yes, because they want him to be compliant. So we have to put an incentive for people to keep their records in terms of paying a little more than the person who doesn't want to pay, rather to keep the records. Then you have the other band. It is between 30 to 50. Okay? Between 30 to 50 with the records, you're going to pay 200,000
per annum.
Per annum.
Gee.
Per annum. Very simple. Okay?
Okay.
Per annum. If you do not keep records, you're going to pay 80,000 plus 0.5% in excess of the 30 million.
You're non-compliant.
Yes, because you do not have any record. But at least you will be in a position to tell your turnover. Because this is turnover based.
Yeah.
That's why you see the rates are different.
Okay, when you talk about 30% to 50%, someone would think, especially for the traders who are in the markets, they would assume that this is something to do with, you know, my entire capital. The 30%, just for the context of this conversation, does that mean the profits of that particular business? Or
for those with tax under 30%, the corporation tax, because now we are outside the SMEs, the presumptive regime, it is charged on profit. There, when you're filing the return, we shall go into the nitty-gritties. The sales minus all expenses incurred in generating the income. Whatever remains will be the profit. Now, that profit will be adjusted for tax, because there could be some expenses that may not be allowable for tax purposes. For example, if you make a donation, some donations are not allowable for tax purposes, though they may be allowable in accounting. So you have to adjust your tax, your profit.
And a donation is anything that goes beyond 1 million?
No, it's any donation. Any donation. What is allowable is the donations if they are made to a charity organization. We have an amateur sports association. All our churches, the original churches and the mosques. Yes. If you make any donation in that aspect, it will be allowable. Any other donation, you're donating to your girlfriend.
I'm buying high car.
You're buying high car from the business. That will not be allowable, because that expense, you can't relate it to business.
Oh yeah.
So
it has no return on investment.
It has no return on investment.
Yeah. So
even when you expense it for accounting, for tax, you have to adjust for it. So whatever remains is what we tax at 30% only on profit. And where you do not make a profit, you do not have to pay. Declare, show to the URA person that I made a loss. I did not make a profit. Definitely your books will be in a position to show us that we did not make a profit. So there will be no tax to pay.
And you said earlier on that even if someone comes and files, because I'm trying to look at the margin of error, I made the money, but I filed nil. Is your agent going to come around me and ask all this and this? I want to know, how does your ego go around that? That I'm going to file nil, but the truth of the matter, I made the money. And I can decide to pay in Jan, and I say, Jan I worked, Feb I worked, March I worked, then in April I said nil. I've not worked, then in May I say I made this little money, then I try to come back. Like I take my own tax holidays as per me. How does your ego around that kind of margin of error?
Okay, we have different initiatives. We have the self-disclosure. Okay? Sometimes we may not go to the taxpayer direct. We may first give them time to think about it and declare on their own. Okay? And the beauty is when you declare on your own, there will be no penalties. So we can allow you room for you to think twice. Okay, in case you've made a declaration which is not correct. We can allow you room to think twice in case you know there is something hidden You can declare that and pay without penalties. But when we come and you've not come out yourself,
You under-declared.
you under-declared, we shall come and impose all the penalties. Because I know you will have something leading to that.
Yeah.
Because it is, if you have a shop, okay, I can look at your transactions. So you'll find that in a month where you declare, but you're seeing the trend, in a month you have like 5,000 transactions, all 500 transactions. How is it possible that in this 1 month nothing happened and the shop was open?
And I wasn't sick or dead.
All dead. Unlikely. Not.
Yeah. Not really. Well, be part of this conversation on Twitter and on YouTube. Whatever question you have, just go to NTV Uganda. I'll pick your question and I'll drop it to Mr. Jim Kagolo here, who happens to be the supervisor domestic taxes from the URA. You and I, we need to be compliant as great citizens, but we need to understand how all these go around. Jim, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, does URA train the one I inch about bookkeeping? The problem we have in our country is the informal sector, and that's where I spend most of my time as one to R1C. And to them, they will write a little bit of balancing of books, and when you call them at around 7, they will say, I'm busy, because they say balancing. And to them, they don't seem to understand the little bit of the jargon URA is coming up with. Does URA have a particular training to onboard them, that it's not so complicated? Because the tax agents, tell you what, Jim, they rip off once so much. Someone will call and say, this in URA, you're going to be in jail and you'll need this much money. And so they spend extra money for fear of going to jail, yet something they could have possibly done online. So how do we navigate that? Because we want to onboard as many as we can to widen our tax base.
Okay, we have so many activities to engage our taxpayers. Okay, many times we go to the field, just not to assess, but to engage the taxpayers.
I love that. Because every time they see you are a
But you know, sometimes when a person is not really into being compliant,
the mindset,
even when you go, probably will not spare a minute to listen to what is being taught. But we've tried, we've done our level best to go to all regions and we train. That's why you see, even at the start of every financial year, we have the budget breakfast. We are preparing these taxpayers that ABCD is coming and it has changed in the tax law. So if we are treating it like this,
you need to change.
You need to change.
Yeah.
So we normally have those engagements to onboard the taxpayers from registration. We told them their rights, how best they can keep their records, and how to file the returns, how to make the payments. We have a full unit called the tax literacy, which is mandated, and definitely the PCA team, which are mandated to train the taxpayers in the different fields. But also we have tax literature translated in all languages in Uganda, be it Uganda, be it Swahili, be it Itesot. Those brochures are all over. You can find them at the nearest URA office. They are of different subjects, be it filing, registration, whatever. You can find that brochure in your convenient language. So in case you've missed out on the trainings when you come to the field, you can pick that brochure and you read on your own, and you'll be able to understand.
I love that. So earlier on, you hinted about something called obligations. And among obligations, if I remember correctly, you hinted on registering, you hinted on returns, you hinted on payments. Timely and accurately, you emphasized the word. Cooperation with our tax authorities and correct and accurate declarations. Can we dive a little bit deeper? What are the rights then of me, a taxpayer? What are my rights I need to know? Because now I know my obligations, so I cannot confuse my obligations to my rights. What are my rights then?
Okay, as a taxpayer, much as you have obligations, but you also have a right. You have a right to be heard. Okay? You have a right in case you've got an assessment, you're not satisfied with it, you have a right to object to that assessment. Because many times what I should say, I know it's taxpayers, is an assessment.
Very much
they get an assessment, they're like, now what should I go about it? In case you're not satisfied, you have a right to object. And all the communications we make regarding tax assessment, all when we are communicating any tax liability, it will have the section indicating that you have a right to object, and it will even tell you how to go about the objection. So you also have a right to a good customer care. I believe if you have ever been to our offices, you are treated good.
Yes, I was. I was objecting the tax.
You were objecting the tax.
I was objecting to the tax, and the person was working on me, you know, really tried to explain, and I could see the effort that was actually into it, because, and the confidentiality, because, you know, you could go to some offices and someone is talking and they're at the top of their voices, but I felt a sense of confidentiality about what you're talking about. So yes, that is a plus to URA when it gets to good customer service.
Thank you. And now that you've also talked about confidentiality, it is another right as a taxpayer. Yes, as URA has the mandate to access your information, but it has no right to release that information to any other, maybe to your competitor. We cannot do that. So we only use that information only and only for purposes of assessing tax. So when you give us your information, we shall keep it with the utmost confidentiality.
Let's talk about refunds, still under the rights there.
Yes.
How do they go around that?
A refund normally arises out of an overpayment. If you overpay tax, in income tax, you can claim a refund. How do you claim a refund? You fill in a form, submit it to the nearest URA office. Definitely when you ask for a refund, we shall need to do some checks.
Again,
it is not straightforward that if I apply a refund and I say that I overpaid the tax on this PRN, it will automatically be refunded. We shall do some checks to make sure that there is no any outstanding obligation. If the refund is arising out of VAT, the application is done in the VAT return itself. Yes.
Okay, someone just dropped in a question here on Twitter.
Yes.
And he says, thanks for this conversation, Andrew and Jim. At least I'm learning. Thank you so much for learning. He says, with issues of records and confidentiality with URA, I am not in the country, but how do I change my email address? Because my email address has since changed, and my records seem to be going to the old email address, but I want to change that. What are the steps? Because I still import things, but now I feel I don't need to open up a new tin.
Yes.
Yeah, but she's not in the country. So the tin number is, the email address she had attached is totally off. So how does she go about that? Now this is someone who wants to be compliant.
Compliant, I can see. Okay, we have two ways.
One,
you can always amend your details on the profile. Now, if you want to change a tin, and if you have a password to the tin, you can log on and amend your registration details.
so let's assume he doesn't have the password to the tin.
Assuming you don't have the password, you have to fill in a form and deliver it to URA with a copy of your national ID. And many times, we would love the taxpayer to come physically. Why should I say physically? Okay? Assuming it is my tin, then Andrew comes to URA, he says, I don't have a password for this tin and I want to change
my email address.
My email address. How do I know that this is the actual owner of
the tin?
Remember,
instructing me.
Yes. Remember when you're filling in, applying for the tin, also when you are an individual, there is some unique information you indicate, like your mother's name. So probably they can interview you. By the way, who is your mother? Okay? Probably you're going to give a different name. Probably you don't even know the date of birth indicated on the tin. So that's why you want the person to physically come. Because if an email is changed and the person who has brought in the tin is not the actual owner, a lot of transactions are going to happen. You will find the car has been transferred already.
Oh, yeah.
So we would prefer that you fill in a form, a manual form. That form can be obtained on the URA web portal under manual forms. You download, you fill the details, indicate what exactly you want to be changed. Okay. Submit to any nearest URA office. It will be changed.
That is someone in the country. This one is someone abroad who would like to actually have these changes. Do we have an online kind of interface program that could possibly navigate this?
Yes, you can scan and share that application with your ID on our services at ura.go.ug. But probably you would also indicate the telephone number. If the person approving that task wants to interview you, he can reach you on phone. Yes.
Oh. Well, I think that has given quite a good answer. So those ones actually who want to be a part of this, I think you've been answered well. And that was to do with the rights. You told us about the individuals and the rights. Let's go to the companies. How do the companies validate this and the whole conversation of the tin, them having a fair assessment of businesses? Yes. How do the companies go about this, and what are the do the rights and obligation cut across from the individual to the companies?
They cut across.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about the PRNs for the SMEs, the ones who want to get on board, because I think this is a new innovation that is bringing them closer. Let's dive a little bit in the PRNs.
Okay. For our friends under the presumptive tax regime, we've tried to simplify everything for them.
How?
So when they are filing, okay, they do everything at a go. They file a return by generating a PRN.
How do I generate that?
You go to our URL web portal, you go to payments, register a payment. The moment you click on it, there is a drop down which will show you the tax types. Okay? It will have income tax, it will have payee, it will have VAT. Then you will see income tax for small business. The moment you click on income tax for small business, it will take you to another page where you will be required to indicate the turnover you've made in a given year. The moment you put in the turnover, the system will automatically compute the tax for you depending on the other rates I talked about, the bands. Okay? If definitely you're below 10 million, it won't raise a PRN for you because you have nothing to pay.
Yeah.
But if you're between 10 million and 150 million, it will generate a PRN for you. By doing so, you will have killed the two birds with one stone. You will have filed a return and you will have generated a PRN. So that is what is expected of a small and micro taxpayer. Very easy. Wow.
Well, now I think you actually get to that. Someone asked a question here, and this is one of those that have been very painful. It's a thorn. It says, good conversation, NTV. I want to know, how do we get away with the tax agents? What is Jim's guidance on tax agents? Are they reliable people? Because I'm starting now to wonder that I can actually do everything all by myself. What is your comment on that, Jim?
Definitely, you can do everything by yourself. The challenge we have is people fear URA. Okay, so many times
that assessment. Why they fear URA? Is it a mental issue? Is it a mindset issue?
It's a mindset issue because we are also human beings.
Yeah.
When you come, we listen, we understand, and we can guide. Because at the end of the day, we want to collect the actual tax. We don't want to get anything in excess. So where you're doing something wrong, we guide. So we normally get those problems because taxpayers themselves at times fear to come to URA.
And it's lack of information, surely.
The information, I should say, is there. Because even when you don't have information, you can walk to any nearest URA office and ask for guidance. It will be free of charge. Okay. How do I treat this? Though much as the agents are there legally, okay, And I mean, when you give them information, they are acting on your behalf because they are just agents. Whatever they transact is on your behalf. So you can't run away from it.
them.
If they do something wrong, it will still come back to you as a taxpayer.
Yeah.
So the best way is do not fear URA. Okay? Come where you have challenges, ask. We shall guide. Okay? It is very okay. I don't want the agents to lose their jobs. But if they tell you something, you can confirm. Okay? You can
call to verify.
You can call to verify whether what they've told you is actually correct.
Oh.
Though I don't want them to lose their jobs.
Oh, yes. Well done, Jim, there. Great conversations coming in. And, okay, there was a message here. This was to do with inputs. Well, Jim deals with domestic taxes. The day we have someone of inputs, we'll actually bring them here, and customs. They will actually explain on that. This one says, great conversation, Chamagiro. Now I need to know, with my 7 stalls of merchandise downtown, how do I register each, like independently or collectively make a company?
Okay, even as an individual, you can have so many business lines.
And I put them on my tin?
Under one tin. You can have rentals.
Okay.
You can have a business, a kiosk somewhere. You can have mobile money somewhere. But when you're declaring, you have to consolidate.
Okay.
Because it is under one
tin.
tin. Even when you form a company, you can have a company that has different lines of business. Still, they will be consolidated, and you declare everything under one tin. You do not have to get a separate tin for each business line,
because that becomes costly in a way. Thank you so much. Those with questions, kindly drop them for Jim here as he's explaining. And we want to understand, Jim, before we finalize this conversation, we want to understand where the clarity needs to be given heavily for our people to understand, especially the self-assessment regime, how critical it is for us to be on board for this, and how best we need to recruit as many Ugandans as we can on this. When we expand the tax base, okay, everyone makes a small contribution. And when everyone pays, no one will have to pay more. So taxpayers should come on board, register for taxes. The moment you register for taxes, exercise your rights, as well as fulfill your obligations. File a return, self-assessment regime. Jim from URA is not going to come and file a return for you because he was not there from the start of the month, all of the year. You best know the transactions you made in a given period. So at the end of the year, okay, at the end of the year, you're given 6 months within which to file a return and declare to URA. But still, I'll have to record this. The return should be timely and accurate. Because when you do not file accurate returns, that is the start of all the problems. You will see assessments flying because you're not compliant. You're not compliant, and you're not honest with us.
Definitely. So when you're not honest, the assessment will come.
Okay. Do we have some bit of incentives that come to compliant domestic taxpayers in a way?
Yes.
Like?
We normally have the Taxpayer Appreciation Week, where we award our best taxpayers.
Okay.
We give them prizes, certificates.
I thought you give them like some tax holidays, like
the tax holidays,
2 months or more.
And
when you've hit the target.
When we hit the target. No, that incentive is not there. Okay. But the incentive will come in the form of the good services.
Okay.
You will get when you pay the taxes. Probably you enjoy driving your luxurious car on a good road. You will be comfortable there.
Okay. Well, the conversation seems to be coming to an end. We really want to thank all of you who have been a part of this conversation, and not forgetting URA, the Uganda Revenue Authority. Listen, as countrymen, we always have challenges to actually know how much we actually contribute. I told you 7.2 million Ugandans are earning money. Ideally, they should be paying taxes, but it's only 2.5 only paying taxes. And we've just grown by just 1 million, but previously it was 1.5, meaning that we still have a lot to go. It's a cry from the government and from countrymen who love the country to join the taxation regime. It's a self-assessment. And when you look at it, it's something you can do within yourself. And how do you see your taxes working? You know, Jim, we have a tendency of saying that I pay my taxes, I can't see my taxes. What is the call to action of taxpayers when they pay taxes? What should they do in their, localities and regions?
In terms of
assessing that the tax is working.
Well, we all have leaders at the different level. We can ask for accountability from our leaders.
Nice.
Okay, like if you have an MP, ask for the accountability from that MP because you pay taxes. Okay, you can ask for accountability. You've seen so many people lobbying from their MPs that we need this road to be tarmacked. Ask and lobby for those services. Ideally, we shouldn't be lobbying, but because the taxes we collect, okay, they are not sufficient to finance our budget. Okay, that is why most of the services, they are done in phases. But I know when we reach that point where our own internal collections are enough to finance our entire budget, we shall not cry anymore.
Okay. Well, seek for accountability from your leaders every other time you have a chance to look at them. And those with more questions, log on to www.ura.go.ug. There is quite a lot of information there. Those who are in small SMEs that are having a turnover of less than up to 150 million Ugandan shillings, you really need to get on board. You need to bring your companies on board to make sure that this conversation runs. In case someone had more questions, Jim, and maybe they didn't have adequate time to call in and, post it on Twitter to ask how best can they get in touch with the Domestic Taxes Bureau?
Okay, you can get in touch with the Domestic Taxes by visiting the nearest URA office. We have a WhatsApp number. You can channel all your queries on WhatsApp, or you can send an email to services@ura.go.ug. All in case you are in contact with, we have CRMs. If you have an issue, you can always contact the tax officer at the nearest station. They will be in a position to respond to your queries.
Okay. This one is the last one. It has just come in via a digital platform. It says, how do I, what identification documents do I need required for an individual to register a TIN number?
To get a TIN, for instant TIN, all you need is a NIN.
Your NIN number.
Your NIN number. Okay. That is all you need to get a TIN, because it already has all your information. The rest of the information, probably you have it, your mother's name, the email address, your telephone contact. That is all you need. But for the identification, instant for individual, it is only the NIN number.
Okay. Well, there you have it. This brings us to the end of our conversation today. Remember, every Thursday, we are having colleagues and friends from the Uganda Revenue Authority. They're trying to make us understand all this. You and I are now getting much more enlightened about how the taxman works. And today we had Mr. Kagolo Jim, who happens to be a supervisor, Domestic Taxes Department from the URA. If you had any more questions, kindly follow URA on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram, and look out for that information. We are in Africa. Information in Africa, you dig for it. And when you dig for it, make someone make you understand it. Visit any URA office within your region, within your area, and make sense of it. If you fail, there are numbers you can actually call, and they will be at your service. I'm Andrew Chamagero. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you so much too.